Well, hi everybody, I'm Neil Smith and welcome to my Polar Lights 1/350th scale U.S.S. Enterprise Refit build. February 23rd, 2018. Once again, I am loving the Orbital Drydock's masks. I have no idea how I'd be able to paint this thing, specifically the chiller grills on the nacelles, and keep my sanity without them. Although it looks very much black in the photo, it has more of a purple tone in real life. Despite the tight fit of all the lights and wires in the nacelles, they both came together without much trouble. I found out during dry fitting everything in there that I needed to remove one of the post holes to make room for the chiller light strip. Once installed and test connected on the Big Easy Modeling Solutions board, I used a strip of translucent vellum to diffuse the light. Lastly, I closed up and sealed the nacelles together. The BEMS light kit tethers were great for this. Now I only have a few wires to feed down into the pylons. This being the first subsection that I would have closed up and glued together, I was pretty anxious about it. But a friend of mine told me, hey, if it works before you close it up, it'll work after you close it up. And you know what? He was right. Everything's great. Lighting the neck was pretty easy. I'm not sure if I'll take the wires up into the saucer terminal or down to the board, joining them with the wires from the secondary hull. I gave myself a little bit of extra wire length to be sure I could reach either direction. But I drilled out openings for the photon torpedo LEDs using the clear part as a guide. I think I read somewhere where someone cut down the torpedo clear part so it would just slide into the opening on the neck after final assembly and painting. I'm not sure if that's the way to go with me or not. March 4th, 2018. I had read that the secondary hull walls were a bit of a pain to glue to the bottom part, so I thought it would make for an easier and better fit if I first glued the bottom of the secondary hull to the backmost part number 28, of the deflector disc housing. Then gluing the walls in would be a better fit because everything would get lined up correctly. That worked perfectly, but the problem arose when I tried to install the shuttle bay. I couldn't get it to fit in from the front. I've heard some people being able to put it in from the top, but once the walls were in place, it's not going in there. So I cut down the supports in the front, as well as about a ½ inch of the support stand mount, which scared me, but everything slid into place, and then I glued the plastic I had cut out back in. So a little bit of crisis, but nothing I couldn't fix. Also, I decided against gluing down any of the shuttles to the floor because I want to be able to remove them so I can see more clearly into the cargo bay once everything's done. I did, however, glue down a few of the work bees. Another issue arose when my cat stole one of the tractor beam emitters from my work table. I assumed it was my cat, unless the part itself somehow became self-aware and took off on its own. I was never all that thrilled with that part being clear in the first place. So back to the 3D printer I went. I eyeballed the curve based on measurements and photos and recreated the part. The tiny little details were much too small to get a clean print from my 3D printer, so I cut up a bunch of little squares and rectangles from some strips of plastic and glued them on. After sanding and painting, I really like the look of it. March 7th, 2018. I have quite a bit of progress on the Enterprise Refit to report. The BEMS upgrade lighting and effects kit came in, and so I decided that I wanted to get all the base all wired up and make it easier for me to test out things. I haven't glued anything down yet, just in case I need to make a change. I wanted to use rocker switches on the base to control all the lights and effects, mostly because I think they look cooler than push buttons. So each switch shares a ground, and one effect is wired to the top, and another effect is wired to the bottom. Works great. I still need to put in a 3.5mm audio jack for speakers, but that hasn't come in yet. Final wiring on the secondary hull was completed last night, and then the pylons and the neck were all glued into place. March 31st, 2018. The Fantail proved to be quite a struggle. I don't know if this was a result of the order in which I glued things together or not, but it really didn't want to stay up against the edges of the hull walls. The angle of the fantail was a few degrees off once the roof of the secondary hull was glued into place. Some CA glue to tack it into place was needed, followed by a generous portion of model cement. I'm going to let everything sit for a day or so to cure. All the wiring from the nacelles, the secondary hull, and the neck need to be spliced here into a much smaller number of wires that will join the wires from the saucer tether in connecting to the board in the base. Well, that's all the time we have for this episode. Be sure to subscribe so you can follow along with the rest of the build. And if you're interested in any of my recommended modeling tools and supplies, check out my Amazon store in the description below, featuring some of my favorites. Until next time, I'm Neil Smith. Thanks for watching.